Now, obviously, the best tight end strategy last year was go all in on Sam Laporta. He's going to be the best rookie tight end of all time. Well, your boy did not know that, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to identify the next Sam Laporta. So we're actually going to have a pretty concrete strategy and figure out, do we draft the elite guy at the top? Are we going to punt the position and look for someone at the very end? Are we going to go bully tight end, take 2 elite level options? We're going to dive into everything with this video, similar to what we did at running back and receiver. But first, you have to understand this graph or this chart, whatever the hell it is, this table, that's the word for it, from Rotoviz. It's going to be the Underdog Roster Construction Explorer. The far left column is going to be how many tight ends were drafted on that team. So 1, 2, 3, or 4. The number of teams that went with that construction, the following one over. The amount of teams with that construction that made it to the playoff tournament, the amount of teams with that construction that made it to the semifinals of the playoff tournament, and the amount of teams that made it to the finals there. So if you're going to be looking at these numbers, you'll see, yeah, you never want to only draft one tight end. I've seen some people make the argument, oh, if you take Kelsey at the very beginning, this was in years past, but if you go Kelsey round 1, then you don't take another tight end. Now, while that is true in your home league, for sure it's true if you're drafting on ESPN just with your buddies. If you're in an underdog draft, no, you're going to at least have to take 2 at all times. You've heard some arguments, oh, maybe you go and take 4 tight ends. That is an okay draft strategy that we can talk about at the very end. But more times than not, you're going to only want to draft 2 to 3 tight ends on Underdog Fantasy in particular. Now, what we did looking at running back receiver is try to figure out where should you be taking your first guy. Tight end, you'll see it's very difficult to do the same thing, because if we look at teams that took a tight end in round 1 over the past 3 years, they did not do well. They didn't make it to the playoffs very often. When they did make it to the playoffs, they didn't really make it to the finals very often. What we can say, though, is if you went tight end round 1, what was best to do is only take 2 guys. You don't want to draft the third. Now, if you took a tight end in round 2, here you're similarly only wanting to take a total of 2 tight ends. But here teams had so much success with this strategy. We're going to talk about why this doesn't really matter at the end, but they had a ton of success getting to the playoffs, getting to the semifinals. They never really got to the finals. If they took their tight end 1 in round 3, they crashed and burned. It was horrible. Does that mean you should not take Sam Laporta this year? No, it does not mean that. We'll talk about why in a second. If they took their tight end in round 4, they didn't make it to the playoffs very often, but they crushed in the semis. They made it to the finals at a very high clip. And if they drafted their first tight end in round 5, it was ideal. If you drafted your first tight end in round 5, immaculate. You made it to the playoffs very often. You made it to the semis all the time, and you made it to the finals at the highest clip possible. Now, at running back wide receiver, this data was somewhat useful, right? And primarily because you were looking at a massive sample size of running backs receivers that were drafted in the first 5 rounds. Tight ends, that is not the case at all. So the numbers we just went over and figuring out should you draft your first guy in round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4, round 5, not going to be applicable as it was at running back and wide receiver. If you go back and look at what you maybe had in 2021, you only had 1 tight end going in the first round. That was Travis Kelce. You only had 1 tight end going in the second round. That was Darren Waller. You had 1 tight end going in the third round. That was George Kittle. You had 1 tight end going in the 4th. That was Kyle Pitts. You had 1 tight end going in the 5th. That was Mark Andrews. And Mark Andrews blew up, so it's making this data look like you want to draft your tight end in the 5th round. But it was just a Mark Andrews thing. It wasn't a strategy thing. Going over to 2022, Kelce went at the 1-2 turn, primarily in the second round. And if you took Kelce, you absolutely dominated. So it made it look like you wanted to take a tight end in round 2. Is that a round 2 thing? No, it's just a Kelce thing. Going to 2023, Kelce was not good in round 1, so it makes it seem like you don't want to draft a tight end in round 1. Was that a strategy thing? No. It was a Kelce thing. So looking at all that data, it's garbage. Throw it out the window. Okay, that alone can't tell you, yes, take your tight end 1 in round 1, or yes, take your tight end in round 2. No. That just kind of explains what's happened with the few elite net level names over the past few seasons. But if we start grouping these rounds together and expand our sample, that's where we can actually start drawing some value. So what's going to be interesting is if we look at teams that took their first tight end before round 6. So you took a tight end in the first 5 rounds of underdog drafts. There, you made it to the playoffs about an average amount of times. You only made it 16.5%, 16.6%, which is right in line with average and what you'd expect in a 12-team league where 2 teams make it to the playoffs. But once you get to the playoffs, if you had that elite tight ends, You were actually extremely strong advancing. You made it to the finals at a much higher clip. You made it to the semifinals at a much higher clip, and you had a higher ceiling in your final week as well. So what you're going to find is if you're in Best Ball Mania, if you're in a puppy tournament on Underdog, if you're in a large field contest and you want a way to separate your team from the rest of the field once you get to the fantasy playoff tournament, you want to be taking a tight end in the first 5 rounds. If you wait until after the first 5 to get your first tight ends, here what you're going to find is you're actually going to find you can make it to the playoffs more often if you don't take an elite tight end, but you take a total of 3 of them. But then what you're going to expect is the semifinals rates are they're decent, but they're not what they were if you took an elite tight end. And the finals rates are going to be lower than if you took an elite tight end as well. So with a 3 tight end build where you don't take an elite level name, you'll make it to the playoffs a little more often, but you'll do a little worse in the playoff tournament. And the playoff tournament's the name of the game in these underdog drafts. Now, one thing I do want to mention here as well is if you took that elite level tight end, you only take 2. If you draft your first tight end in the first 5 rounds, you're only taking 2 of these guys. And if you take your first tight end after the first 6 rounds, then you want to be taking 3 of them. Now, going over to what we have with a potential strategy we see a ton. We've seen people try to make the bully tight end strategy work. You go back in years past, there were some crazy people going Kelsey Andrews out the gate when they were like first, second round picks. We knew back then it was bad, and now I've kind of been thinking, maybe you can get away with Sam Laporta round 3, Mark Andrews round 5. I really like the price point of both those guys. Let's swing it. No, if you look at taking 2 tight ends in the first 5 rounds in these underdog drafts, very bad. Your playoff rates are going to be really low. Your finals rates are laughably bad as well. So yeah, you don't want to be ever going with bully tight end historically. And maybe you can say, well, Mason, it's going to be a way I can get unique in comparison to the rest of the fields. But the thing is, like, if Mark Andrews smashes in round 5 this year, does it really help you if you have Sam Laporta also smashing in round 3? Not necessarily. So going with a heavy hand approach with the bully tight end strategy and going with 2 tight ends in the first 5 rounds, very bad. However, if you go with like a hybrid bully tight end, I don't even know if you want to talk what we want to say this, maybe aggressive tight ends, right? Where you go with the elite level tight end, a tight end in the first 5 rounds, and then also follow that up with your tight end 2 before the 12th round. Here you're seeing your semifinals rates get juiced up to 1.64% and your finals rates up at 0.11%. So this is actually juicing what you would have with just a standard typical elite level tight end strategy. So based off the historical data that we have seen over the past 3 years in these underdog drafts, 1, it goes to say if you take an elite tight end, you only take 2. If you wait and punt on tight ends, you want to take 3. And typically, the elite tight end build has been a little more better if you were looking for the fantasy playoff tournament. And it is even better if you don't only take the elite tight end through the first 5 rounds, but you also follow it up with another mid-round tight end before round 12. So I'm going to hop in a draft right now so we can actually show you how to implement this strategy and have some success. Okay, we are going to hop in Best Ball Mania. This is the largest tournament on Underdog Fantasy. $25 buy-in, $15 million prize pool, $1.5 million for first, $100,000 for the first 20 finishers. Now we're going to go ahead, pick a 12 here. This pick sucks. If we want to go ahead, if we want to get the elite tight end, we're most likely going to be looking to go Travis Kelce at the 3-4 turn. But what's also difficult is we know on Underdog, typically we're wanting to go 5 receivers through the first 8 rounds. So it makes it hard here at pick 12, where a lot of times the best option that you're going to have at the 1-2 turn will be Jahmyr Gibbs. We're going to figure it out though. And of course, if y'all wanted to get into an underdog draft, this is where I draft every single day during the offseason. It's where I draft all the time on the live stream. And yeah, they're best ball drafts, so no time commitment at all during the season. That's how I draft hundreds of teams every year. So I won $150,000 on Underdog 2 years ago. And if you sign up to Underdog Fantasy with code FLOCK, they'll give you a 50% deposit bonus up to $250. Plus code FLOCK is going to hook you up with my 2024 fantasy football rankings, my 2024 fantasy football draft guide, and Underdog is available in damn near every state. You can see the map here to see if you can get into an Underdog draft. And also with code FLOCK, you're going to be getting set up with a special NBA pick'em, something like Luka Doncic, more than less than half a total point, depending on the day that you sign up. But yeah, we're going to wait till we're on the clock to really talk here, but it is interesting to see Chase off the board at 1 and CMC all the way down to 3. Really interesting board here where Breece Hall makes it all the way down to 11. So honestly, this is going to scare me a ton in taking Jahmyr Gibbs here. Mainly because if you are looking at CMC falling to 3, Bijan falling to 8, Hall falling to 11, makes me think that it's going to be a room where running backs fall a ton. We're still going to take Jahmyr Gibbs, though, because I do think he's a clear tier ahead of all these other receivers. And if we were trying to maybe get a little bit unique here in Best Ball Mania, I think you can make a strong argument for Harrison, a strong argument for London. I think all these wide receivers are about in the same tier. So just so we have a unique build in comparison to the hundreds of other thousand teams drafting in this tournament, I will be very weird here and take Chris Olave just because I don't think there'll be a lot of Gibbs and Olave starts. And I think Olave has a similar range of outcomes as someone as Drake London this next season. So I understand, very weird pick for us to take Olave. It's not me saying that I think Olave is better than Harrison or London in a vacuum, more so that I think that they're in the similar tier and we're going to get leverage over the rest of the field if these two guys are the ones who smash because they will be at lower ownership on the same team. Here we are going to be back up on the clock in a very interesting spot. As we said previously, this does appear to be a room that really is pushing up the wide receivers. You see that with Saquon Barkley almost making it to round 3. Like we said, Breece Hall almost making it to us at pick 12. So it'd be perfect for this video and perfect for this tight end draft strategy video is if we can get Sam Laporta here at pick 36. GG, call it a day. I am going to be freaking pumped. Now, if Laporta does make it to us at 36, then I think our hand will be forced where we're most likely going to have to reach on another wide receiver in this range. So I think we're going to go Laporta and Tank Dell based off this draft room. Wide receivers kind of running away with things at the moment. But yeah, I mean, I freaking love Laporta here. And this is an absolute no-brainer selection for what he was able to do last season. For the fact that we have Jahmyr Gibbs, we're able to get the correlation and kind of make that one concentrated bet on this Detroit Lions offense. And yeah, now that we have Laporta round 3, I mean, almost round 4, it's a spot where the next tight end that we're going to look at, we don't really need until rounds 9, 10, 11, 12. And over the next few middle rounds, we're probably going to be looking to try to grab some more receivers. I know we're going to get running back values in this draft based off what we see with everybody else here. I know people are probably screaming at me for taking Tank Dell over Derrick Henry, and I get it. But here, Derrick Henry makes it all the way down to pick 41. I'm almost certain we're going to get running back values later. Yeah, just keeping track of these running back values. Travis Etienne, Josh Jacobs, Isaiah Pacheco have all made it here pretty much to the 5th round. Side note, Anthony Richardson before Mahomes on a team that doesn't have any Colts. Super interesting. So we're going to pull this around similar to what we were talking about previously. Yeah, you just kind of read the room and understand what values are going to fall to you in what draft. Here, Josh Jacobs is available at pick 58. If we wanted to go wide receiver with our next selection, we'd be looking at Calvin Ridley. Based off the historical data that we are looking at, we know that we don't want to be going with bully tight ends. So Kyle Pitts, George Kittle aren't really in play. And we're more so just going to be looking at the running backs and wide receivers. Rome ends up going at 59. So if we're looking at running backs and wide receivers, I think James Cook is a pick that we can afford here at 60 because we reached on Tank Dell a little bit earlier. And I would rather have Rachaad White and Joe Mixon over Calvin Ridley in a vacuum. But the issue is going back to what we were talking about previously, reading the draft room, understanding that this is a room that Josh Jacobs fell to pick 58. When we're taking running backs in this draft room, which obviously we are going to want to do, I'm excited to, I want to make sure we are getting them at a massive value because I think there will be massive running back values to be had. So we'll go ahead and we'll take Ridley here, and I'm sure we'll get a running back value on the way back around. And our next tight end, like I said, we're still looking for before round 12, but not right this second. Yeah, like I said, I know it was crazy that we passed on Mixon and Rachaad White where we did, but they make it all the way down to 70 and 71 in this draft room, just to show that there will be crazy running back values we're getting later. Okay, we're going to pull this up. Looking at the best values on the board right now, you have a few quarterbacks with Burrow and Kyler. We don't have the stacking ability with either, so it's going to be difficult for us to take them. And yeah, if you're looking at the best players available, right now at running back, you have Aaron Jones, Ramondre Stevenson, Zamir White. Wide receiver, way down the board, you're looking at Cortland Sutton, Curtis Samuel, Tyler Lockett. So this is why previously we went Calvin Ridley where we did. And honestly, I don't even know if we got a big enough value on James Cook for how far he fell. Or maybe we should have just gone ahead and we should have just taken a receiver. Receiver with that pick. Because there's no way we can take Sutton here. But let's see what happens. I'm assuming Finn's fan decides to go Kyler. This is a team that took Harrison, but no, instead he goes Zach Moss. So we're going to take Aaron Jones here at pick 84. I think that's an easy selection to make. After we take Aaron Jones, I think most people would go ahead and take a running back. I know this is going to be a weird pick, and Finn's fan here is probably going to get upset because they have Harrison, and we are taking an unstacked Kyler. But Kyler Murray does have rushing upside. We have potential stacking options with Kyler a little later as well. I definitely prefer wide receiver. Every draft, we're trying our best to get 5 receivers through the first 8 rounds. It's just in a draft room like this, it's very difficult to take Curtis Samuel over Aaron Jones. It's very difficult to take Curtis Samuel over Kyler Murray, right? So we're going to go ahead. We'll take Aaron Jones. I don't want to double tap running back. Just like I've said from the very beginning, you can identify it when CMC falls to 3, identify it when Brees falls to 11. This looks to be a draft room that's going to push down running back, so I want to give ourselves the ability to take RB later. So we're going to go Kyler Murray at 85. Now, this was great for us. We had a massive run on running back. And now all of a sudden, I mean, there are actually some receiver values that are falling to us at 108. Hopefully, I mean, clearly this is a team where we need wide receiver. Mike Williams goes 104. There's an outside chance, just a small possibility, we can go Jordan Love and Romeo Doubs here at 108, 109, which would be great. But we have 2 more picks and both of them need to fall. But like I said, tight end would be in play for us as well. We know that we want to take the elite level guy before round 5 if we can, or before round 6 on the first 5 rounds. And then also another tight end in the first 11 rounds if possible. But Finn's fan on the clock goes Caleb. So we are set up. We are able to take Jordan Love as our second quarterback and Romeo Doubs to pair him up as well. So, oh my gosh, I love this team, to be honest. I wish I live streamed this team, didn't make it a video, but running back, we're sitting with Jahmyr Gibbs, James Cook, Aaron Jones. Wide receiver, we have Olave, Tank Dell, Calvin Ridley, Romeo Doubs. We have the elite tight end in Laporta that we are targeting. We have Kyler, who will try to pair up a little later on with his secondary options. And we have Jordan Love paired up with Romeo Doubs. So really excited about this team through the first 10 rounds. So from a tight end perspective, we're definitely only taking 2 in this draft no matter what. And it would make sense for us to go through, take Dalton Schultz here at the 11-12 turn like we showed with the data. I mean, it does merit taking your second tight end in a respectable range, even when you got the elite level guy. I don't know what we want to name this. I don't know if we want to name this aggressive tight ends. But Dalton Schultz would make sense also because we took Tank Dell. So maybe this is a team where we go all in on the Houston Texans passing offense, or maybe Stephon Diggs goes down, Nico Collins goes down. One of those guys gets injured. Dell and Schultz both get the expanded target share. Dontavian Wicks would have been a no-brainer for us to be able to pair him up with Jordan Love as well. But yeah, we're going to go Dalton Schultz, get him paired up with Tank Dell, have him running alongside Laporta. And like I said, in your regular home league, you're not going to go through and you're not going to take a second tight end when you take Sam Laporta. This is specific to best ball here for the second tight ends. And then we're trying to figure out what we're going to do at 133 as well. I really don't like Dotson. I don't like Gabe Davis. I think we probably prefer, the thing is we need a freaking wide receiver. So I think we're going to just be boring. I think we're going to stay disciplined. I would way rather have Jerome Ford than these guys. We'll be up at 156 again, 156. will probably be probably be a running back range. So it's a boring pick, but we'll take Jahan Dotson here as our wide receiver 5 because technically we do want 5 receivers through the first 8 rounds, which we did whiff on. But let me show off this strap board and probably call the video here because this is a tight end strategy video. And I think we implemented exactly what we were trying to in taking the elite tight end while also getting another player in a respectable range where it does correlate with the rest of our team. So really like this team. Of course, if you want to see me draft teams, I'm doing it pretty much every single day on the live stream. Yeah, we're drafting on Underdog. You can get in a draft whenever you want. Just find the link in the description, comment section. If you use code FLOCK, they're going to give you a 50% deposit bonus up to $250 in a new account. Plus, you will get our 2024 fantasy football rankings and draft guide. Plus, with code FLOCK, you'll be getting set up with a special pick'em, something like Luka Doncic, more or less than half a total point. The player will depend on the day that you sign up on. And also, Underdog is available in damn near every state. You can see the map there. But thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. I really do appreciate you and really hope we get to see you out with a live stream sometime soon.